we got to take just a couple of minutes, and there's some things we have to share with you, because the whole reason that we do this is to bring us to a point where, like Veronica, we are faced with a choice, or like Rob, we're faced with a choice. Rob's choice was, he realized that the choices he was making and that his priorities had gotten out of whack. So he had to make a decision. Veronica had to make a decision. And that's the whole reason that we do YouthQuake Live, is to bring us to a point where we're faced with some decisions. And when we created this, every single time we do a YouthQuake Live, we're asking ourselves a question. The cast is asking a question. What is really in our heart? What is the burden in our heart that we've got to communicate? What is the thing that's really inside of us that if we could only imprint the audience with one thing, what would that be? And it's really the name of the song. You know, as we're going through that, they wrote the assignment, what are you going to do with your summer? Rob's asking the question, what will I do with my summer? And that's really the question that we want to present to all of you tonight, is what are you going to do with your summer? But here's the deal. Take out the word summer and make it a blank, and you fill in the blank. What am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with the time that God has given me? And that's what the summer represents. The summer represents how you spend your time. What are you going to do with the way you spend your time? What are you going to do with the way that you spend the time that God gave you? And that's the message behind this musical. What is it that you're going to do? Now, Lindsay was a character who really seized every opportunity. In Colossians chapter 4, verse 2 through 5, it's going to be on the screen here behind me in just a minute, but I want to read it to you. Colossians chapter 4, verse 2 says this: devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful, and pray for us too, that God may open a door for our message, so that we may proclaim the mystery of Christ, for which I am in chains. So there's two things so far in that verse. You're making a decision. In verse 2, it says, devote yourselves to prayer and being watchful. In other words, devote yourselves to things that are going to cause you to grow. Rob said, I need to make some changes because I need to work on my relationship with God. I need to devote myself to the things that are going to cause me to grow as a Christian. And that's what this verse is saying right there. Devote yourselves to things that are going to cause you to grow, to prayer and being watchful. And then it goes on to say, so that we may proclaim the mystery of Christ. That's what Lindsay was singing about. She's like, I need to proclaim the mysteries of God, and if I could just pull the clouds down and let people see it, but I can't. I'm going to have to proclaim the mystery of God through the way I live my life. They're going to have to see it in me. She realized her life was that message. What message are we communicating with our lives? And then it goes on to say, to make the most of every opportunity. Be wise in the way you act towards outsiders and make the most of every opportunity. People are watching. And Lindsay recognized that. Even the people that were mean to her and the people that liked her. She was nice to both of them. And she seized every opportunity. When she stood over here and she sees Veronica over there crying in the chair, and she realized that this is an opportunity. And I would rather walk away from this opportunity because this girl's mean to me. But instead she doesn't. She seizes that opportunity. Make the most of every opportunity. And that's what this verse is saying. And when we wrote this musical, or when we first performed it, we were coming out of a tour that we called the Rooftop Tour. And that comes from Matthew chapter 10, verse 27, where Jesus says this. He says, the things that I speak to you in secret, you proclaim it from the rooftops. So there's something that's implied in that. Jesus is saying, what I tell you in secret. In other words, there's a personal relationship that we have. When you and I spend time together, the things that I tell you in secret, through my word, through prayer, the things I tell you in secret, you get on the rooftop and proclaim it. And when Jesus said that, it was during a time when they didn't have text messages. They didn't have the internet. They couldn't get on the internet and find out what was going on in the news and read people's blogs. The way they would find out stuff is when something would happen, they would get up literally on a rooftop in a community and they would proclaim it. And they would say what was going on. And Jesus is saying, look, you proclaim it from the rooftops. You get up there. And so for us today, how that applies for us is, what is your rooftop? Your rooftop is wherever you are. It might be your Facebook. It's some place where you have a voice, where you have influence over other people. It might be your soccer team, or it might be your job. It might be at school, like Lindsay. It might be in some other place where you're in your neighborhood. Wherever you are, that's your rooftop. And Jesus is saying, don't be ashamed of this. It's not that you get up and you preach at people and you beat them over the head with a Bible. Maybe you've considered that. I've considered it. I can't say that I've tried it. If it works for you, let me know. But Jesus is saying you don't have to do that, but it's not judging people or condemning people, but he said, what I tell you in secret, proclaim that. In other words, you get up and tell them what I'm doing in your life. What I'm doing in your life, proclaim it from the rooftops. You let everybody know what Jesus means to you, and that's what Lindsay was doing. She was proclaiming it from her rooftop. Lindsay was bold because she had experienced something personal. A personal experience with Jesus changed her life. Now, I'm going to quickly go through this and we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to ask the guys to come out because we're going to finish this out tonight by just really reflecting on our own lives, getting in the presence of God and making some decisions. The disciples that followed Jesus Christ, they walked with him. They talked with him. They saw him lay hands on blind people and get healed. They saw him raise Lazarus from the dead. They saw him walk on water. They saw him do all kinds of crazy things. They knew that he was the Messiah. They heard him preach. They heard him say things that no one had ever said before. They knew he was the Messiah. They knew that he was the Christ. But then when they saw him die, they all ran away in fear. In fact, in the Bible, in the book of Acts, it says that after Jesus died, the disciples were hiding for fear of the Jews. Okay, the great apostles of our faith, the great leaders of the Christian faith, these men that Jesus handpicked to walk with him for these 3 years, are now running away and hiding themselves in fear when Jesus died. Until 3 days later, when Jesus rose from the dead, and they experienced that Jesus was alive. They had an experience with Jesus that changed everything. They had a personal experience with Jesus that he was now alive. These same disciples that were afraid preached the gospel of Jesus Christ to their death, every one of them. What we need to do tonight is experience that same thing. And we need to realize that Jesus died and he rose from the dead. And just like when Lindsay led Veronica in that prayer, tonight we can make that same decision to say, God, I believe. Romans chapter 10, verse 9 and 10 tells us that if we believe in our heart and confess with our mouth, that we'll be saved. And we yield our lives to Jesus. That's what we want to do here tonight.